The crystal chandeliers of the Grand View Hotel cast dancing shadows across marble floors as Zara Vex adjusted the strap of her borrowed evening gown. She felt like an imposter among designer dresses and diamond necklaces, but her firm had insisted she attend this charity gala. Beneath the skin tone modifier on her wrist, Zara's natural violet skin remained hidden. She was Celestian, sent to Earth 3 years ago to study human romantic relationships and family structures. Her people had evolved beyond nuclear families, and the Celestian Institute wanted to understand human pair bonding patterns. What Zara hadn't anticipated was falling in love herself. She stood near the champagne fountain, clutching sparkling water, when a deep voice behind her said, "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else right now." Zara turned to face Julian Cross. She recognized him immediately from business magazines, tall, dark hair touched with silver at the temples despite being only 35. The kind of presence that made people stop talking when he entered a room. "Is it that obvious?" Zara laughed, surprising herself with honesty. "Only to someone who feels the same way." Julian's gray eyes crinkled at the corners. "I'm Julian. I know who you are. Zara Vex. I design buildings that will never be as impressive as the ones you own." "I doubt that," he said, and something genuine in his tone made her believe him. They spent the rest of the evening talking in a quiet corner, ignoring networking opportunities. Julian was nothing like the ruthless businessman portrayed in articles. He was thoughtful, asking about her dreams of sustainable architecture, sharing his own frustrations with commercial development. When the gala ended, he asked for her number. Zara gave it without hesitation. Their relationship unfolded like a storybook. Over the following months, Julian took her to rooftop restaurants where they sketched building designs on napkins. They spent Sundays wandering historic neighborhoods, Zara pointing out architectural details while Julian listened with genuine interest. He was attentive, curious, made her feel like she was the only person in his world. Zara's small apartment became their sanctuary. Julian shed his corporate identity when he crossed her threshold, becoming simply a man who loved to cook pasta while she worked at the kitchen table. Her best friend Maya warned her to be careful, reminding her that men like Julian lived in a different universe. But Zara was already too far gone to listen. 6 months into their relationship, Zara began feeling unusually tired. At first, she blamed long hours at her firm. But when nausea started, she couldn't ignore it anymore. The pregnancy test she took on a Tuesday morning showed 2 pink lines that would change everything, she told Julian that evening at his penthouse. They'd planned a quiet dinner, but Zara couldn't eat. Her hands trembled as she pulled the test from her purse and placed it on the table between them. "I'm pregnant," she said simply. Watching his face, Julian stared at the test for what felt like an eternity. His expression shifted through surprise, confusion, and something that looked like fear. "Are you sure?" "I took 3 tests. All positive. I have a doctor's appointment next week to confirm." He stood abruptly, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Zara watched his reflection in the glass, trying to read his thoughts. When he finally spoke, his voice was strained. "This is unexpected. I know. But Julian, we can figure this out together." He turned to face her, and for the first time since they'd met, she saw the corporate mask slide into place. "I need time to think." The warmth that usually filled the space between them had turned cold. Zara felt something crack inside her chest, but she nodded. "Okay. Take the time you need." 3 days of silence followed. Zara threw herself into work, checking her phone constantly, each passing hour making her more anxious. When Julian finally called, asking her to meet at his penthouse, relief and dread warred in her stomach. She arrived at 7, heart hammering. Julian answered the door, but before she could speak, another voice cut through the air. "So, you're the girl trying to trap my son?" Zara froze. A woman in her early 60s stood in the living room, perfectly coiffed in a cream suit, holding a wine glass like a weapon. Victoria Cross had the same gray eyes as Julian, but hers were ice cold. "Mother, that's not," Julian started, but Victoria raised her hand. "Please, Julian. Let's not pretend we don't all know what's happening here. She turned to Zara with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. How much? Excuse me? Zara's voice came out smaller than intended. How much money will it take for you to handle this situation quietly and disappear from my son's life? 50,000? 100? The words hit Zara like physical blows. She looked at Julian, waiting for him to defend her. Look at her daughter and see the man she'd loved, but also see someone entirely new, entirely theirs, someone innocent of all the pain that came before. The years unfolded in a rhythm of survival and small victories. Zara enrolled in night classes at Portland State University, finishing her architecture degree while Mira slept in a playpen beside her desk. Patricia watched Mira during classes, refusing payment but accepting the casseroles Zara learned to cook in bulk on Sundays. When Mira turned 2, Zara landed an internship at a small sustainable design firm called Green Space Architecture. The pay was minimal, but they believed in her vision. She designed her first completed building when Mira was 3, a community library in a low-income neighborhood that won a local design award. The award led to more projects. By the time Mira turned 4, Zara had enough clients to start her own small firm, Vex Design. She rented a tiny office above a bookstore and hired one assistant, a recent graduate named Thomas who shared her passion for environmental architecture. Mira grew into a bright, curious child who loved drawing almost as much as her mother did. She attended a progressive preschool where she made friends easily and asked questions constantly. Why is the sky blue? Where do buildings come from? Do all kids have daddies? That last question came one evening as Zara tucked Mira into bed. She'd prepared for this moment, rehearsed answers. But nothing could have prepared her for the innocence in those gray eyes. Some kids have daddies who live with them. Some have daddies who live far away. And some kids just have mommies who love them very, very much, Zara said carefully. Do I have a daddy somewhere? Mira asked. You do. But he doesn't live with us. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt other people, even when they don't mean to. Did he hurt you? Zara's throat tightened. A little. But you know what? You made everything better. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Mira smiled and hugged her stuffed rabbit closer. You're the best thing that happened to me too, Mommy. After Mira fell asleep, Zara allowed herself to cry for the first time in months. She had built a good life, a life filled with purpose and love and accomplishment. But late at night, when the city was quiet and Mira breathed softly in the next room, Zara sometimes wondered what Julian was doing, if he ever thought about her, if he had any idea what he'd missed. She never tried to contact him. Pride and pain formed a wall she couldn't climb. He had made his choice that night in his penthouse, and she had made hers. They lived in separate worlds now, and that was probably for the best. Then, 5 years after she left, everything changed. Zara's firm had grown to 8 employees and a respectable portfolio. When the opportunity came to bid on a major mixed-use development project in downtown Portland, she almost didn't submit a proposal. The project was massive, far larger than anything Vex Design had attempted, but Thomas convinced her to try. The worst they can say is no. And your sustainable design approach is exactly what they're asking for. Zara spent 3 weeks on the proposal, working late nights after Mira went to sleep. She designed a building that would integrate green spaces on every level, use solar panels and rainwater collection, create affordable housing units alongside market-rate apartments. It was ambitious and beautiful and everything she believed architecture should be. She submitted the proposal on a Friday and tried not to think about it over the weekend. On Monday morning, her phone rang with a New York number. Miss Vex, this is Robert Chen from Cross Development Group. We've reviewed your proposal for the Portland Riverwalk project, and we'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss moving forward. Zara's hand tightened on the phone. Cross Development Group. Julian's company. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Miss Vex, are you there? Yes, sorry. I'd be happy to meet. When works for you? Mr. Cross himself will be in Portland next week for the site inspection. Would Thursday at 10 work? Julian, Zara's voice broke on his name. Mother, maybe we should discuss this privately, he said. But he still didn't look at Zara. There's nothing to discuss, Victoria said. This girl is clearly after the Cross fortune. A junior architect dating a billionaire? Textbook manipulation. And conveniently getting pregnant just as you're preparing for the merger with Harrison Group. Victoria's laugh was bitter. I didn't raise a fool, Julian. That's not true, Zara managed to say, finding her voice through shock. I love him. This baby is ours. I'm not asking for money. I just wanted to tell him the truth. Love? Victoria scoffed. How romantic. Tell me, did you love him before or after you learned about his net worth? Zara turned to Julian, tears streaming down her face. Tell her. Tell her that what we have is real. The silence stretched between them, vast and unbearable. Julian's face was a mask of conflict, duty and desire waging war behind his eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Zara, maybe my mother has a point. This is all happening very fast. We've only known each other 6 months. A baby right now, with the merger, with everything happening at the company. Maybe it would be better if we took a step back and thought rationally about this. The word shattered something fundamental inside Zara. This was the man who'd whispered poetry to her at midnight, who'd held her during thunderstorms, who'd promised her they could build something beautiful together. And now he was choosing his mother's paranoia and his company's merger over their child. Rationally, Zara repeated, the word tasting like ash. You want me to rationally decide what to do about our baby while your mother accuses me of being a gold digger? Zara, please try to understand, Julian reached for her, but she stepped back. I understand perfectly. Her voice grew stronger, fueled by rage burning through heartbreak. You're a coward, Julian Cross. You can build towers that touch the sky, but you can't stand up to your mother for 5 minutes. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door. Behind her, she heard Julian say her name, but she didn't turn around. This conversation isn't over, Victoria called out. Zara paused at the door, looking back one final time. Julian stood framed by his wall of windows and wall of wealth, smaller somehow than she'd ever seen him. Yes, it is, Zara said quietly. Goodbye, Julian. She walked out of the penthouse, out of the building, out of the life she'd been foolish enough to imagine could be hers. That night, she sat in her small apartment and made a decision. She would have this baby, raise this child, and build a life that didn't depend on anyone else. If Julian wanted to be part of it, he would have to prove he deserved it. But the phone never rang. Days turned into weeks, and Zara realized she was truly alone. She quit her job where everyone whispered about her failed relationship with Julian Cross. She packed her belongings into her aging sedan, said goodbye to Maya with promises to stay in touch, and drove north toward Portland. In her rearview mirror, the city's skyline grew smaller, its towers built by men like Julian, reaching toward a sky they'd never touch. In her belly, a small life grew, innocent and unaware of the pain that preceded it. Zara placed one hand on her stomach and made a silent vow. This child would know love, stability, and strength. This child would never feel abandoned or unwanted. And Zara would become the person she needed to be to make that happen, even if it meant doing it entirely alone. The road stretched ahead, uncertain, but hers to travel. Portland welcomed Zara with rain and the scent of coffee roasting in corner cafes. She found a small studio apartment in the Hawthorne district, affordable and close to public transportation. The neighborhood had character, vintage shops next to modern galleries, young families pushing strollers past food trucks. It felt like a place where she could reinvent herself. The first months were brutal. Zara worked as a waitress at a busy breakfast diner called the Morning Glory, her feet swelling in her sneakers as pregnancy progressed. The owner, Patricia, a kind woman who'd raised 3 children alone, took pity on Zara and gave her early morning shifts that ended by 2, allowing her to rest in the afternoons. Between shifts, Zara sketched. She couldn't stop designing, even when exhaustion made her hands shake. She drew community centers and affordable housing projects, sustainable buildings that could transform neighborhoods. The drawings piled up in folders under her bed, dreams waiting for a chance to become real. Her daughter was born on a rainy Tuesday in March. Zara labored for 14 hours at Providence Hospital, Patricia holding her hand through every contraction. When the nurse finally placed the tiny screaming bundle on her chest, Zara felt something shift fundamentally. Mr. Cross. Julian. Coming to Portland to meet with her. Zara's mind raced through scenarios. Maybe he wouldn't remember her. 5 years was a long time. Maybe he'd send someone else. Maybe she could reschedule, send Thomas instead, avoid the entire situation. But running away wasn't who she was anymore. She'd spent 5 years building herself into someone strong, someone capable. She could handle one meeting with her past. Thursday at 10 is perfect, she heard herself say. As she hung up, Zara looked at the photo on her desk, Mira grinning with her 2 front teeth missing, those gray eyes bright with joy. Whatever happened next, she'd built a life worth protecting. And she'd do whatever it took to keep her daughter safe from the pain Julian Cross had once caused. Even if it meant facing him again. The week crawled by. Zara told herself she was being professional, but she changed her outfit 3 times Thursday morning. She wore a charcoal gray suit that made her look confident and capable, a successful architect, which is exactly what she was. The meeting was at the development site, a vacant lot beside the Willamette River with views of bridges and downtown skyline. Zara arrived 15 minutes early with Thomas and her senior designer Monica. 3 black SUVs pulled up at exactly 10 o'clock. Zara watched as doors opened and people emerged, assistants, lawyers, executives. And then she saw him. Julian stepped out of the middle vehicle, talking on his phone. He wore a navy suit and looked exactly the same except for more gray at his temples and new lines around his eyes. He was still magnetic, still commanding, still the man she'd loved desperately 5 years ago. He ended his call and turned toward them. For a moment, Zara saw him freeze, recognition flashing across his face. Whatever he'd been about to say died on his lips. Mr. Cross, Robert Chen stepped forward. This is Zara Vex from Vex Design, the firm that submitted the sustainable development proposal. Julian's eyes never left Zara's face. Miss Vex, he said, voice carefully controlled. It's good to meet you. So he was going to pretend. Pretend they'd never met, never loved, never created a child together. Zara felt a flash of anger but kept her expression professional. Mr. Cross, thank you for considering our proposal. She extended her hand. When their fingers touched, she felt the same electricity that had sparked between them years ago. His hand tightened briefly on hers before releasing. Your proposal was extraordinary, Julian said, and she could hear the strain beneath his professional tone. The integration of sustainable elements while maintaining aesthetic beauty and economic viability. It's exactly the kind of innovative thinking we're looking for. I'm glad you think so. My team and I are passionate about creating buildings that serve communities, not just investors. Something flickered in Julian's eyes. Yes, I could see that in every detail of your design. It's clear you've put a great deal of thought into how real people will live and work in this space. They walked the site, discussing logistics and timelines. Zara presented her vision with confidence, pointing out where community gardens would be, how the building's orientation would maximize natural light, where affordable units would integrate seamlessly with market-rate housing. Julian asked thoughtful questions, and several times their eyes met and held for a beat too long. By the time the meeting ended, Zara's emotions were tangled in knots. Julian had been professional and complimentary, but she could feel questions radiating from him. As everyone prepared to leave, Julian approached her alone. "Zara," he said quietly, dropping the pretense. "Can we talk privately?" "I don't think that's appropriate, Mr. Cross. This is a professional engagement. Please. 5 minutes. I've thought about you every day for 5 years. I need to know you're okay." The vulnerability in his voice almost broke her resolve. "I'm fine. Better than fine. I built a life here. A good life. The baby." He hesitated. "Did you? Are you?" "That's not a conversation we're having at a construction site," Zara said firmly. "If you'd like to discuss the proposal further, you can contact my office. Good day, Mr. Cross." She walked away before he could respond, before she could see the pain in his eyes, before her own resolve could crumble. The phone call came 2 days later. Zara recognized the number as Cross Development Group but answered anyway, telling herself it would be Robert Chen with contract details. "Zara, please don't hang up." Julian's voice filled her ear, urgent and raw. She closed her office door, heart hammering. "How did you get my direct line? I need to see you. Really see you. Not surrounded by lawyers and assistants. I know I have no right to ask, but there's so much I need to say. Julian, what happened between us was a long time ago. We're different people now. I'm not different enough. I'm still the coward who let you walk away. But I want to be better. Please, Zara. One conversation. Then if you want me to disappear, I will." Against her better judgment, Zara agreed to meet him for coffee the next morning, early, before Mira woke up. She left her daughter with Patricia, who raised an eyebrow but asked no questions. The cafe was quiet at 6:30, just the hiss of the espresso machine and soft jazz playing. Julian was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. He stood when she entered, and she noticed his hands were shaking slightly. "Thank you for coming," he said as she sat down. "I have 45 minutes before I need to be home." "Say what you need to say." Julian took a breath. "I was a coward that night with my mother. I should have defended you. I should have told her we were having a child together and that nothing else mattered. Instead, I stood there silent and let her say horrible things to you. I've regretted it every single day since. Why didn't you call? Even after I left, you could have found me. I tried. Your phone was disconnected. Your apartment was empty. Your firm said you'd resigned. I hired investigators, but you vanished completely. After 6 months, I told myself maybe you'd ended the pregnancy, that you'd moved on, and I should respect that." He paused, pain etched in his face. "I drove to Portland with $700 and a belly full of your child," Zara said quietly. "I worked as a waitress until I was 8 months pregnant. I gave birth alone, built a business alone, raised a daughter alone. So forgive me if your regrets don't move me much." He flinched. "A daughter. God, Zara. What's her name?" "Mira. She just turned 5. 5 years." His voice cracked. "I have a 5-year-old daughter and I've missed everything. First steps, first words, birthdays, everything. You made that choice. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life regretting it. But I want to know her, Zara. I want to be her father. Even if I don't deserve it, even if you hate me, please don't punish her for my mistakes." Zara felt tears threatening. "You think I kept her from you out of spite? I kept her from you because you didn't want us. You chose your mother and your company over your own child. How do I know you won't do that again? How do I know you won't break her heart the way you broke mine?" "You don't," Julian admitted. "I can't promise I'll be perfect. But I swear to you, I will never abandon her. I've spent 5 years becoming someone worthy of a second chance. I left my mother's company, started my own firm with my own values. I go to therapy twice a week. I've tried to become the man I should have been. Zara studied his face, seeing truth in his exhaustion, sincerity in his eyes. This isn't about us, Julian. There is no us. But Mira deserves to know her father if he's going to actually be present. I will be. I promise you I will be. Then we'll start slow. Very slow. And the first time you disappoint her, we're done. Understood? Understood. Zara took a breath. There's something else you should know. Something about who I really am. She deactivated her skin modifier. The change rippled across her body, skin shifting to luminous violet. Julian's eyes widened. What? I'm not human. I'm Celestian. I came here to study human relationships. But Mira is real. Our love was real. Everything between us was real. Julian stared, then slowly reached out, fingers tracing her violet cheek. You're purple. Yes. And you trusted me enough to show me. His voice filled with wonder. Zara, this doesn't change anything. You're still the woman I fell in love with. The mother of my child. The only person who ever made me want to be better. And in that moment, Zara allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, people could change.